Hello. It's I, Andrine, Jewish American Priestess, and I'm here to do a really brief reading tonight. It is the last days of October, so we're coming into the month of November, which we're already all into the new month of Cheshvan. But we're coming into this time where the veil's really thin, and we've got the All Souls Day, All Saints Day in, of course, other religions, and the Day of the Dead. And so I'm going to do just a really brief reading to honor that side of things right now. So I'm going to throw down, I don't know how many runes, we'll see. We'll just throw down a handful and see what comes up. I don't even know what spread I'm going to do yet. I'm going to toss them down here. I'm going to do only uprights, though. All right, we got a bunch. Let's see what they say. I'm going to say that our central issue here is the Lamed. And Lamed is the letter that corresponds with the previous month of Tishrei. It has to do with action in the world. And it is the one letter that reaches above the line in Hebrew. So it has to do with aspirations and the heart, love, which begins with Lamed, longing for elevation. And the constellation of Libra that happens in the month of Tishrei. So action in the world, intestines in the body, and the heart as well. And what we've got coming before that is the Tav. And the Tav is the last letter of the Hebrew alphabet, so it has to do with endings. It has to do with a seal or a stamp. It has to do with the moon in the sky. Since we just came into a new moon, that seems to follow. It has to do with sovereignty and slavery. So something in our recent past has either propelled us into a state of sovereignty or possibly into understanding where we sit in terms of slavery. And some kind of completion, possibly the completion of last month or the completion of the high holidays, maybe all of those things. And before that, we have the Ein Sof, the uncarved, the primordial material. It's interesting because that comes first, and then Tav comes last, but, it's a completion of creation, too. The creation was completed in our calendar in the last month. And what's on the upper line, what's helping on the upper line is we have the letter Nun. And Nun is the letter that represents humility. So the thing that will help us in this time is humility. It corresponds to this month, Mar Cheshvan, which is the month of stillness and mourning. So, and honor. It has to do with honor and mourning and humbleness and servitude, like being a faithful servant, bowing forward. It has to do with Scorpio in the constellations, which is where we are now, new moon in Scorpio. We just had an eclipse in Scorpio, and this is the current constellation that we're in because it is Mar Cheshvan in Scorpio. It has to do with the stomach and the body and the foundation of locomotion. So onward movement at a steady pace. So that's what's helping right now, is this idea of humility, this idea of locomotion, and the current time, which is Mar Cheshvan, being in the present in that case. The other letter that's up here in the center is the letter Pe. And the letter Pe is about a mouth. It is the mouth of the divine. Oh, it's going to fall out of my hand. It has to do with the use of speech to create. So creating the universe through speech, as the divine has done. And it has to do with using one's own speech to create positive experiences and not using speech for evil purposes. Speaking truth. And it has to do with the spiral. So it's spiraling in and it's spiraling out. It is the number 80 in Gematria, so it has to do with the infinite. So not unlike the Ein Sof, it is about infinity. 8 being the infinity symbol, and 10 times 8 being the ultimate manifestation of the infinite. So that's going to help us right now, focusing on the infinite and our place in the infinite, possibly with the idea of humility here, because we are small in connection to the infinite. I'll come back to these ones over here. What's on the lower line is Samech. And Samech is a circle. It is about being surrounded. And it also has the foundation of agitation in it. So although it can be about protection, it can also have to do with thorns. In the Paleo-Hebrew, the Samech looks like a thorn, and it does have that thorniness to it. It corresponds to the foundation of agitation, and it is connected to the month of Kislev, which comes after Mar Cheshvan, and it has to do with the constellation of Sagittarius. So it can have to be doing with protection, but since it's on the lower line, I'm going to guess that it has to do with more with agitation. Something agitating is up right now. Maybe a thorn in one's heart. And the other letter that's on the lower line is the letter Chaf. And Chaf is like the palm of a hand. This is this one. And it's like giving what needs to be given and receiving what needs to be received. But it has to do with the palm of a hand or the sole of a foot. So it can have to do with power. The word koach starts with Chaf. And so it can have to do with being suppressed or oppression. And it sometimes has to do with pain and sorrow, weeping, being disheartened, being cut off or shattered or subdued or smashed. So since it's on the lower line, I'm guessing that it has to do with those negative things. So we have this foundation of agitation and also this idea of oppression or sadness, sorrow. It has to do with the sun in the sky, and it has to do with the day Tuesday in time, as well as the foundations of wealth and poverty. So perhaps something to do with feeling impoverished, maybe spiritually feeling impoverished, emotionally impoverished, or in some way suppressed or oppressed. On the lower line, maybe again our hearts are feeling an emotional impoverishment right now. What's coming up next is the letter He, and He is the letter that has to do with presence. So remaining presence with the word hineni, meaning I am here, which is the answer that one ideally gives when they are called by the divine. So it has to do with being present, about unity and completeness. It has to do with the liver in the body, the liver, which is the heaviest of all the organs, and also is discerning and filters the blood of toxicity. And that's what's coming up in the future after our heart has gone through some of this stuff. We have this idea of remaining present and being able to discern better how to tell what is healthy and what is unhealthy in our bodies in the near future. And what we have coming up above to help us out in that time frame is tzadi. And tzadi has to do with justice, tzedek, and righteousness. Someone who is a tzaddik is considered righteous. And it has to do with, again, humility. So it looks a little bit like the nun, bent over, and yet it has a yud on its back. So it's as if a humble person is carrying the divine with them wherever they go. And it corresponds to the constellation of Aquarius and the month of Shavat, and the foundation of thought. So maybe thinking things over will be useful for us in this time of remaining present. Thinking things over, thinking things through with righteousness and justice in this coming time. And that will lead us to this last Hebrew of Dalet. Dalet is a doorway. And we're going to walk through some sort of portal, some sort of doorway that will be, again, about humbleness and humility. We've got humility several times here in this reading. And so humbling ourselves as we walk through the doorway, remembering that is a blessing that's given to us, this doorway. It has to do with the number 4, so the 4 directions, north, south, east, west, the 4 elements, earth, air, fire, and water, and the 4 seasons, winter, summer, spring, and fall. Also the four letters of the name of the divine, the Yud He Vav He, is referenced in regards to the Dalet. 4 different ways of studying Torah. It has to do with Mars in the sky and the day Monday in the week, and the binary foundation of wisdom and foolishness. Right now, I don't know very much about astrology, but my understanding is that Mars is in retrograde right now, just starting today and going through January 12th or something like that. I don't know exactly what that means. I know that Mars is the war planet, or the planet that rules over the constellation of Aries. So there may be some, conflict that's going on right now, and for the next few months. But we have the ability to have wisdom as we go through that doorway, as we go into the future. So just going back over this, the central issue is the heart, that we've just come out through this time of completion, which was preceded by the nothingness, the emptiness, the foundation of all. We come through the time of completion of creation, completion of the high holidays, completion of the last month, and the completion of the season of summer. And we are moving with humility into the present of this heart space. What's not going to help us right now is being agitated. And if we are agitated, we need to move back up toward humility. And if we find ourselves being oppressed or oppressing others, it's probably good to move up back through the heart to communication, to speaking for peace, speaking from the heart, and finding kind and good things to say. And that will bring us into a time of presence, presence with the divine, and what will help us in this near future period is justice and righteousness, and again, humility that will allow us to walk through the doorway that's coming up next, through this time where the veil is thin, and we have the honoring of our beloved ancestors that have come before us, and with that, we'll hopefully be able to walk through this time with heart and with humility, and walk on through to the other side. And I thank you all for sitting with me tonight and listening, and I hope to see you again next time. Shavua Tov.